He wrote a book that defined a generation, a book that sold over 65 million copies. And then, at the absolute peak of his fame, he just disappeared. So today, we're going to try and unravel one of literature's greatest mysteries, the life of J.D. Salinger and his deliberate retreat from the world.
Just think about that for a second. You create a masterpiece, The Catcher in the Rye, that makes you a literary superstar. Literally everyone wants a piece of you. And your response? You run. You turn your back on the whole thing. It's such a fascinating, almost unbelievable choice, right? And the reasons behind it? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack.
So this is the core conflict, right here. On one side, you've got global fame, the instant sensation, the endless interviews, the just crushing weight of publicity. And on the other side, you have Salinger's choice, extreme privacy, a total refusal to engage, in complete and utter seclusion. He didn't just reject fame, he actively built a fortress to keep it out. And this gets us right to the heart of what we're calling the Salinger paradox. How did a man so gifted at connecting with millions and millions of people through his writing come to absolutely despise any form of public connection? To figure that out, we've got to go back to the beginning.
Okay, so Jerome David Salinger was born in New York City way back in 1919. He grew up pretty well off, went to private schools, a world you can totally see reflected in Holden Caulfield's life, and he found his passion in writing. At Columbia University, a professor saw his talent and really pushed him. It seemed like he was on this clear, successful path, but a massive, world-changing event was looming that was about to shatter everything. Everything, and I mean everything, changed for Salinger during World War II. This wasn't just some chapter in his life. This was the crucible that would shape his entire worldview, his writing, and his future. Look, Salinger's experience in the war was not distant or abstract. It was intensely brutal. He was on the front lines of some of its most horrific moments. He stormed Utah Beach on D-Day. He fought in bloody European battles. And he was one of the soldiers who liberated Nazi concentration camps. It's almost impossible for us to even wrap our heads around the psychological toll of witnessing that level of human depravity firsthand. A lot of biographers are pretty convinced Salinger suffered from what we now call PTSD. The trauma of the war, the constant fear, the unimaginable loss, the horrors he saw, it left these deep, invisible scars. And you can see it all over his work. Holden Caulfield's constant watchfulness, his sudden bouts of depression, his deep distrust of authority. These aren't just teenage angst. They mirror the symptoms of severe trauma. This was a burden Salinger would carry for the rest of his life. And this trauma fundamentally reshaped his art. After the war, Salinger's writing basically became this desperate search for the innocence that had been just obliterated on the battlefield. His characters are almost always wrestling with trauma, and they're deeply cynical of the phony adult world, a world that, in his eyes, had created the very horrors he'd seen. So this leads us directly to our next section, the catcher's trap. See, Salinger poured all of that pain and his search for something real into one character, Holden Caulfield. He created a masterpiece, but in doing so, he he set a trap for himself. The year is 1951. After years and years of work, Salinger publishes The Catcher in the Rye. His entire world was about to get turned upside down. And the book was, it was an absolute phenomenon. Young people, especially, had never read anything like it. Holden's raw honesty, his rage at the world's hypocrisy, his profound loneliness, it resonated on a seismic level. Salinger had given a voice to the anxieties of an entire generation.
And he hated it, all of it. The fame, the attention, the way people just projected Holden's identity onto him. He felt like the world had completely missed the point. For him, this book was a deeply personal expression of pain, not some invitation to become a celebrity.
So his reaction? It was swift and it was total. This wasn't some slow retreat from the spotlight. No, this was a great escape. Salinger decided that if the world wasn't going to leave him alone, he would just leave the world behind. He moved to a remote home in Cornish, New Hampshire. He turned down every single interview request. He refused all publicity. He was almost never seen in public. To Salinger, fame was the ultimate phony distraction, a force that he believed corrupted both the art and the artist. He was building a wall of silence, brick by methodical brick. But here's the ultimate paradox. By trying to completely erase himself from the public eye, he only made himself and his work that much more fascinating. His silence didn't diminish his voice. In a weird way, it amplified it. So when it's all said and done, what is his legacy? Well, he practically invented the modern teenage voice in literature, influencing countless writers who came after him. He wrote about mental and emotional struggle with a raw honesty that was decades ahead of its time. And his exploration of innocence, phoniness, and the pain of growing up, it's still just as powerful today as it was in 1951. He proved an artist's work could not only survive but thrive, completely separate from the artist's public persona.
J.D. Salinger may have chosen silence, but his work never ever stopped speaking. He built a wall to keep the world out, but the power of his words was just too great to be contained. Through Holden Caulfield, Salinger left behind a voice that continues to echo, offering comfort and understanding to every single generation that feels misunderstood.